Good morning or afternoon, wherever you may be calling in from or watching from this particular show. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. and your host for today's Modern Sales Mastery Show. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you today to talk about this episode. So you are now part of the Modern Sales Mastery Show, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 steps to launching a digital sales program. So if you're in sales leadership or you're a sales leader in enablement, this is going to be the show for you, because we're going to take the time to talk about how do you launch a digital sales training program inside of your organization, and what are the things that you should be looking for. So I want to get right into today's topic of discussion on the Modern Sales Mastery Show. And we're going to launch these slides here right now, and you should be seeing it. So 10 steps to launching a digital selling program. Now, as customary, you're going to want to make sure you follow on LinkedIn.com. So follow on LinkedIn.com and make sure you follow the Vengreso channel, because we've got tons of insights there on helping you and your sellers to create more sales conversations and book more meetings, and finally, ultimately leading to building more pipeline. In addition to that, right in your chat as well is coming up this particular link. Follow on youtube.com. Make sure you follow on YouTube. We've got hundreds and hundreds of videos that are being placed onto the YouTube channel. And this particular channel is filled with rich insights that will help you and your sales team to book more meetings and grow the sales pipeline. Short videos from Vivica Von Rosen, Kurt Shaver, myself, Bernie Borges. And in addition to that, join us on Twitter. You're going to want to make sure that you join us on Twitter and follow us if you're a tweeter. All right, that covers some of the administrative stuff. Let's get into talking about our presentation. Now, we've defined the 10 steps to be able to launch a digital selling program. And very specifically, these are very much the steps that I used when I sat in the seat as a VP of sales, helping my sales organization, about 120 US domestic sellers, 350 global, to be able to put together a program that drove 100% rep adoption. And 100% of our reps were able to attribute a deal to the closed lost, or open pipeline. Now, why do I talk about the closed lost component? Well, it's important because this whole exercise of doing digital selling is focused on driving more meetings and building the pipeline. So as you go through this process, know that this is tried and true and tested. And we've been using this particular process, the 10 steps, to work with our customers for the last 4 years. So the first thing we want to do, and that we're going to talk about, is define desired outcomes and establish the different KPIs. Then we're going to go through and do some buyer identification and mapping. Who are our buyers? How do we want to map to them? And how do we want our sellers to approach them and attack them? Then we go through and look at what does our sales content look like, our creation, and how we're going to distribute that. And you've got your choose your digital tools. Now you're going to see something very interesting inside of our deck where we're going to say text, text, text. And that's because we want you to fill in the blanks there, because every organization has different types of tools. And finally, in this first half is develop customized playbooks. We'll talk about what those playbooks are and what you need. And then we move into the second half, and that is looking at creating buyer-centric profiles. We'll talk about that. And then we move into digital sales training. Now, notice how we don't get to the digital sales training until step number 7. You saw that correctly. It's not until step number 7. Most people want to go straight into doing workshops and training and product training, but you fail to remember that you have to go through the first 6 steps before you get to training. Super important. Then we look at how do we coach for continuous improvement? How do we incorporate that coaching element into our training program? And how do we drive adoption? How do we measure the success by driving adoption? Let me repeat that. How we measure success is going to be by driving adoption. And you're going to need things like gamification, and also how do you recognize? And then finally, we're going to measure it all, and we're going to adapt, and we're going to repeat where we need to repeat in step number 7 and beyond. very, very exciting here. So let's get into step number 1. Define your desired outcome. So if we look at this and we look at what does success look like, that's what we want to first take the time with our leadership to articulate what does the success look like, and how do we articulate the goals of the program. So are we trying to measure book more meetings, increase sales pipeline? Are we trying to measure adoption, reps actually engaging, change behavior? What are all the things that we're looking to accomplish inside of our digital selling training program? And then we look at how does that tie back into identifying the organization's specific business goals, because that's how you're going to get a program to be approved and justified, to be able to really look back with, all right, what are the business unit's goals? What are the company's goals? And then how do we articulate the goals of this specific program? And then, of course, you can't forget, what do the reps care about? It's always a what's in it for me with our sales reps, right? And so we need to be thinking about very specifically, what do the reps want right now? Do they want more training? Well, no rep says, hey, I'd like more training, generally speaking. But if we tell them that, hey, do you want to increase the number of booked meetings that you have every day and week? Or do you want to grow your sales pipeline? And the answer, of course, should be yes. Well, then there you go. Now you start incorporating those goals and that messaging into your particular desired outcomes. Then we want to take a look at how do we make sure we have the needs of the team aligned with the program itself. And finally, understand if we need to leverage a phased implementation. So what do I mean by that? Well, it might mean that we look at phasing this out over the course of time. When I sat in the seat, I launched both video for sales and social all at the same time. It was a Herculean effort. And it was one of those things where, frankly, I don't know if I would do it over again. The way I would do it with our customers, and we recommend, is over the course of time. And that's usually over the course of the year that you have these types of prospecting activities and training done over the course of the year so that you can absolutely impact behavior and you can also impact the results as well. So those are some things to think about. Now we move into step number 2. And that is buyer identification and mapping. So a couple of things we want to be thinking about. First off, we need to make sure we identify who are our sellers going to be going after. Do we want them going after everybody, or can we focus this effort on digital sales prospecting to specific stakeholders that we want them to target? Maybe it's the C-suite, maybe it's the mid-tier, maybe it's the user buyers, or maybe it's all of the above. In all cases, we need to identify who we want them targeting so that it allows them to be able to make their blows count. Then we want to look at what are the pains. You know, as I talk to most sales leaders and sales reps, most of them have a difficult time articulating in one sentence what it is that they do. For example, if someone were to ask anyone at Vengreso, what does Vengreso do? Our answer would be, we help sales teams and leaders create more sales conversations and increase the sales pipeline through digital sales training. All right, so the pain that we identify is all around booking more meetings and increasing pipeline. If you're a sales leader, in our case, that doesn't have a problem with pipeline development and that doesn't have a problem with your reps getting those more hellos or more booked meetings, guess what? We don't want to talk to you. For sales purposes, that is. So with that in mind, you need to make sure that your sellers know what that business pain is. They know who to go after in terms of the titles and keywords that we're searching for on platforms like LinkedIn, as an example, and that they're able to quickly identify those folks so that we can filter accordingly. Then we look at, in advance, how do we develop some of the Boolean logic or strings that will be needed to be able to search for our buyers. That's assuming that we aren't using tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. In fact, 50% of our customers actually don't have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's kind of a little rub with LinkedIn and Vengreso. Customers ask us, do I have to have LinkedIn Sales Navigator to be successful in social selling? And the answer is no. No, you don't have to. But we always say, if you have the money to buy both software and skills, then absolutely go with both. But if you only have one, you always go with the skills and do a crawl, walk, run approach. So Boolean logic is really around if you don't have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And now we move on into number three, step number three, and that is around sales content creation, curation, and distribution. So with that in mind, we want to take a look at what's our content strategy. If you're in enablement, you're a sales leader, you may not know this now, or hopefully if you're enablement, you do, but we have to bring value to the conversation every single time we create outreach to a buyer. And we want to look at what is our content? What is our content doing for us today? And what is the strategy in terms of answering product-specific questions or business problems or pains that are addressing our target buyer and market? And that's really what you'll be thinking about is all right, if I'm going to launch a digital selling program, my sales reps need to have content to be able to help lead our buyers to the solution versus pitch them any particular content or product. We want to make sure we identify what are our content sources. So if, as an example, we are going to use internal and external third-party sources, what are the off limits and what are the ones that are on limits? For example, we might look at other industry trade rag journals that speak to our specific industry. So we want to understand that and look at how do we build that into an employee advocacy program and develop that content. And that's really partnering with the marketing team. Then we want to train our reps to feed their network. But notice the training piece will not come until step number 7. We want to be thinking about what's the right way to feed that network with valuable content. And we want to make sure that we are focused on how do we amplify the brand, your company brand, that is. And so right now, the name of the game is how do I get the brand out there? How do I build brand visibility? And how do I get my reps to help contribute to that? If you've got an army of, say, 100 sales reps or 20,000 sales reps, you have an amazing opportunity to be able to get your company to be amplified and the brand to be found out there in the public. But even if you only have a small company like Vengreso, which is about 30 people, we actually have all 30 of our folks sharing content across our employee advocacy program, or feeding their network, if you would. And that helps to all contribute towards the brand development of the organization. And the best part is our sellers who are sharing content, they can actually see results of leads. That's right. Sharing content that creates actual leads back to the organization. Now, we go into choosing your digital tools. That is the next phase of this particular section here. And with that, you're going to see on the board, it says text, text, text. What do we mean on that? Why are we putting text? Well, here's where you're going to fill in the blanks. Some of our customers have tools like employee advocacy solutions from companies like Live Social from Seismic, or formerly known as Grapevine 6, or Gagalamp, as an example. Also, we may have tools like SalesLoft, Outreach, or VanillaSoft. We also may have other types of tools that allow us to be able to find people's contact information, like Seamless.ai or ZoomInfo. And yet there are other tools that we might have, things like calendar appointment scheduling tools, like Calendly, TimeTrade, or HubSpot, as an example. So what we need to identify is what are all the digital tools that we'll be using, and filling in the quote, the blanks, if you would, to be able to help identify how we're going to incorporate the use of all of these tools into our training program. So as an example, if we were sending out a video message, we would also want to make sure that our reps have what's called a book a meeting graphic or icon on that video sales landing page, so that someone could go in and easily click on their book a meeting link and it opens up their calendar. Another example might be, well, if we're going to launch a digital sales training program and we're going to include video as an example, well, we need to know what video tools we're going to use. Are we going to use free tools like Loom? Or are we going to go with a enterprise grade version like from OneMob or Hippo Video as an example? So these are a number of different tools that we've got to think through. How are we going to enable this particular digital selling program? If it's a social selling program, What are some of the tools we might need there? So this is a great brainstorming opportunity. And when you're working with partners like Vengreso, we would walk you through this particular process of, all right, we want to take a look at how do we go about choosing the right tools and what are the tools that we're going to reinforce throughout the training process. Okay, let's go to step number 5. Now we want to look at how do we develop our customized playbooks. Playbooks, you say? What does that mean? Well, we definitely want to make sure we include, if we're not a LinkedIn Sales Navigator user and we are having our reps use their own regular personal LinkedIn premium accounts or free accounts, how do we develop Boolean searches that will allow them to filter on the types of buyers that they should be looking for and filtering and measuring against? We also want to look at what are the things that sellers need to do on a daily basis and put together our daily list of activities at, quote, cadence playbooks as well. Then we have messaging templates. In our Modern Sales Mastery program, which includes social selling, we give out a 24-page book along with a really awesome tool called Fly Message. Now, flymessage.io is a tool that stores all of the different messaging templates and allows you through quick text or shortcuts, what we call fly cuts, to be able to send out those messages for trigger events, birthdays, anniversaries, cold prospecting messages. But you have to build those templates and construct them in such a way that users understand what it is that they have, how to use them, and how to incorporate personalization, bringing value, and the right call to action. So you want to look at those templates for the different scenarios. We have all kinds of different scenarios, as I mentioned already, trigger events, job changes, anniversaries, birthdays. We also have cold prospecting message templates that sellers can use that they have to fill in all the different gaps and blanks. We also have other trigger events when someone's looked at your LinkedIn profile as an example. So we have all of these things built out, and you want to be thinking about how do you build that as well. And now we move on to step number 6, and that is create buyer-centric profiles. Okay, now this one I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on because creating buyer-centric profiles is an extremely important step. Now notice creating these buyer-centric profiles is coming before you ever get into training. Let me repeat myself. Notice that creating buyer-centric profiles comes before you ever get into training. Why? Well, we need to be thinking about how to convert everyone's personal LinkedIn profile from a resume to a resource. Team, if we are giving our sellers auto signatures, messaging scripts, playbooks, phone scripts, phone training, well, when they go to use a tool like LinkedIn or video, as an example, 62% of buyers report that they look back at that seller's LinkedIn profile to determine if they actually want to have a conversation with them. Now, that number was 62% about a year ago, and about 8 months ago, or a little over a year ago, excuse me, and about 7 months, 8 months ago, another study was done that showed 72% of buyers reported that they're looking back at your rep's profile. The question you want to ask yourself is what do my rep's profiles say? Holy Toledo, are they quota crushing sales rep, best contract negotiator, all-time President's Club earner? Well, if that's what they say, you are instantly detracting and distracting your potential buyers. And believe it or not, like it or not, your reps' LinkedIn profiles are like 100 or however many sales reps you have, 100, 1,000, 10,000 mini company abc.com websites. That's exactly what they are. So we need to transform them so that we have the right banner image. We have the right headline that speaks to who you help, how you help, and what business problem you solve. The right summary that has the 8 different components that are required that we put into our summaries that we write for companies such as yourself and roll this out across the whole sales organization. And those 8 components include things about the call to read, getting someone to click on that little see more section of your about section. It's now called actually the about section, but if you actually click on the about and go to edit it, it says summary inside there. So it's actually the about section now. In addition to that, we want to look at the job description. Sure, should we include things about our specific role and what we do? Yes, absolutely. But we should also include things about our clients and what are some of the successes that we've had and making sure that we've got the right multimedia. This is super important. You've got this rich the featured media section of a LinkedIn profile, and you also have the media section on your experience section. And so if a buyer is going to come to your profile, they're going to look at your profile, your seller's profiles, and they're going to peruse it. You might as well give them the content that is going to help lead to your solution. So that's that multimedia side. And then we look at the skills section. Now, this one is a hidden gem here, so get your notes out. Did you know that you can SEO, keyword optimize your LinkedIn profile? That's right. When we actually write those LinkedIn profiles for our clients and roll it out across the whole sales organization, we make sure we utilize the keywords that marketing wants the company to be found for inside of the text. In addition, we take about half of the keywords that are the top keywords, anywhere between 10 to 25 keywords out of 50 that you can have in the skills section, and we have the reps update their skills section. Now, in most cases, most reps don't have it filled out, so it's pretty easy to be able to have them updated. But now we're keyword optimizing them so that they can be found for what it is that your buyer is searching for when it comes to leveraging social networks. So this is a very important step in the process about creating the buyer-centric profiles. This is basically another playbook that we create when we're launching a digital sales training program using our Modern Sales Mastery program. And what we do is we help transform thousands at a time in one fell swoop sellers' individual LinkedIn profiles so that they are mapping to who they help, how they help, and what business problem they solve, and very specifically giving them a fighting chance to be able to engage that buyer when they click into their profile for the first time. So this is an extremely important step that you're going to want to make sure you have. And then finally, the recommendation section. So making sure that buyers can see that they've been recommended by different clients, the type of person that they are to work with, some of the characteristics of that individual, because that allows the buyer to be able to then turn back and say, yes, I want to work with this particular seller. All right. So now we go into step number 7, and that is the training part. So inside of here, we look at how to customize your training program. So you've got some standardization, but you've got very specific customization to the talk track that is applicable to your sales team. You want to look at having some instructor-led classroom or virtual instructor-led classroom training, depending on where you're at in the world and where you're at with some of the challenges that are going on in the world right now. You want to look at having some sort of on-demand. So the purpose of having the on-demand is so that it helps to be that textbook, if you would, that textbook. That textbook is going to allow you to be able to do some pre-reading and meditating and understanding what you need to do before you get into the actual classroom. You're going to have some live, mix it in with some live webinars as well for reinforcement and or virtual instructor-led. And you can include just-in-time or guided learning as an example as well as part of your training. And then you need to make sure that you have a coaching program. The coaching program is kind of like your reinforcements, the thing that's going to create your behavior change. So when we launch a program here at Vengreso, we have 3 elements. We have the on-demand, which is your textbook. We have the live virtual instructor-led training, which is your hands-on practical. And then we have the coaching, the live coaching, which we oftentimes turn into prospecting hours. And our sales enablement, as well as our sales leaders, love this type of program because it allows us to be able to, frankly, put together a program that includes prospecting pretty much every other week. And we're going to basically help serve as that sales manager, if you would, especially throughout the training programs. So now we look at launching the training program. Now we've done all of our books, we've done all of our playbooks, we've done all of our planning for digital tools, all the things I mentioned in steps 1 through 6. And now you're ready for launching the training to put it all together. Oftentimes this becomes very overwhelming for a sales leader. We know, and that's why we help companies such as CENTRIC, now called Loom Technologies, why we have clients like Juniper Networks in the FinServe industry, and even the world's largest vanilla extract producer. That's one of my favorite clients to talk about. because even those in selling vanilla extract are now involved and engaged with digital selling. All right. Now we move on into our 8th step, and that is the coaching element. So I talked about that in the training area, that what we do is, and we incorporate 3 facets: the on-demand, the virtual VILT, and the coaching piece. The coaching piece is your reinforcements. This is what's going to help you change your sellers' behaviors. But coaching for continuous improvement really is all around putting together a program that allows sellers to come in like office hours for the professor, if you would, to meet with a coach in a group setting where everybody can level each other up. Now, generally speaking, in a classroom of 100 people that we're training in our VILT sessions, you'll have about anywhere between 20 to 30% that shows up for office hours. Now, office hours are really that opportunity for us to be able to drill down into the areas that somebody was practicing on for that particular week. We also look at opportunities to be able to say, what did you send your customer? How did you engage with them? Show us what you got. Why did you do that? What are the areas for improvement in this particular message, in this particular social engagement, in this particular video, as an example? And so we'll take your sellers through that process and really coach them for improvement. And you want to have tools that are available that allow for discussion forum-like activities. And these discussion forum-like activities are going to be things related to asking questions where they can get support from your coaches or your trainers. Just like we have it, we have that available 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, East Coast to West Coast, where individuals can come in and ask a question. Hey, I did this script. Hey, I sent this message to so-and-so. Hey, I'm not getting a result. Can you help me out? And that's that opportunity to be able to coach for continuous improvement. So there, once you go through that and you've got that set up, now you want to look at driving adoption via gamification and recognition. That's super important, is to look at how do we drive adoption. That's one of the key elements in order for you to be able to build a pipeline, in order for you to be able to actually create more sales conversations. You want to be able to gamify this whole entire program. So what are some of the things you want to do? First off, make it fun. Put in some daily reinforcement techniques in terms of gamification. You want to measure it in terms of its KPIs that you're focusing on for the beginning, which are some of the goals. And you want to use like a centralized workspace. So what does that mean? Well, you could have a learning management system that measures essentially what people are doing in terms of performance. Are they completing the training? Are they taking the training? You might also use some dashboards that you might build inside of Salesforce or HubSpot, as an example, related to the number of meetings that are booked for this particular week or next week or over the course of time. Maybe it's going to be related to having some money, some incentives inside there that you can give away. But I'll tell you this, for a company that doesn't have a whole bunch of dinero, no problem. You can still create a gamification program that is centered around, very specifically, recognition. So some of the things we see our clients do is we say, hey, the top performing, whoever it might be, for the best video, or the person that books the most meeting through video, or the person that's able to book the most meetings this month for social, will receive a LinkedIn recommendation from the CSO or CRO. And that is in and of itself is a huge testimony to their background, their efforts, and those types of things. And a lot of people would love that type of recognition. So make sure you're using some sort of workspace that allows everybody to be able to see the latest and greatest. We do a lot of things related to success story playbooks. And in our programs, we push that out, that playbook, every single week as part of our packaging and our messaging to our customers so that other end users can see what's happening. If they see people being recognized and they see the story behind that, then you're able to replicate and duplicate. So make sure you've got that centralized workspace and have lots of games and money. You know about gamification. Make sure that you've got that. If you don't have the money, no problem. Have it as a game. People love the recognition. Super important for you to understand in terms of driving adoption for your digital selling program. All right. Now we go into the final piece, and that is the 10th step, how to measure and adapt for improvement. So first off, you want to make it as a sales manager, as a sales director, sales vice president. You want to make it part of your weekly debrief. How is the team doing? You want to look at any outside coaching that is required if needed. If they're saying, I'm not getting results, this is not happening, I can't get you want to get them first off to coaching, but make sure you arrange if they need some additional help or support, arrange to get that for them. And then you want to make sure that you're positioning your reps to succeed. So after you've seen and heard the feedback, what's working, what's not, how do you reposition yourself so that you can have the next team or add in more additional content or add in different elements to the existing training that will allow them to be able to succeed quicker, faster, and better. All right, so what do you do next? Once you've got all this, you want to now say, all right, I'm ready to launch a digital sales training program. We now look at who are the key stakeholders in the organization. Definitely you want to include sales enablement, the business unit leaders, VPs and directors of sales, marketing as well. These are the folks that you want to have included. And when we say business unit leaders, for example, that would be your CRO or CSO that would be responsible. This is very important. You've got their buy-in and you've got them engaged. In fact, not only do you have their buy-in and engaged, but they are promising to go through the program as well. You're going to need marketing because you need content. You're going to need enablement because you're going to have an element of learning and training. And your VPs and directors, assuming your VP is not the head of sales or the top person in charge of sales, then your VPs and directors need to be brought on board with the program that's going to be launched, the length of period of time, and what the expected results will be. After that, then we move right into looking at a pilot group. Now, so you know, this is probably not so applicable anymore. Most of our customers in 2020 and nearly all in 2021 have skipped the, quote, pilot group. Why? Well, we're a digital first world now. And even when things do go back to what we call, quote, what we think might be normal, it's not going to be as we knew normal then a year and a half ago. So the reality is we need to think about how do we take this program and launch it to the whole sales force now, not tomorrow, not next year, now. So with that in mind, if you chose to go with the pilot group, you definitely want to have a pilot group that is about a minimum of 50 to 100 players. Now, if you have only 30 folks in your sales organization, guess what? You're not running a pilot. Take the program and run with it and train. You got to move because you don't have the luxury. But if you got a sales organization of approximately 1,000 people and you feel the need to run a pilot because you're not sure if your buyer is digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry, okay, no problem. You could do that, but get about 100 folks inside of your group, your pilot group. And make sure you've got some of the key sales influencers within your organization. And when I say influencers, those are the people that have a voice. You know who those sales folks are who have a voice and other people listen to, especially your top performers. Get real commitment from them that they will complete it and make sure that they understand it's being measured by the senior leadership team. And then, of course, incentivize that particular pilot group because you're trying to drive for success. Again, I'll repeat, most customers in 2020 and 2021, they don't need a pilot group. They know that our buyers are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry. And so in that regard, they're pressing forward. So a little bit about Vengreso, of course, who we are. You probably, since you're watching our show, you already know a lot about us. But essentially, we help solve the personal branding problem. That is for your sales reps to attract their target buyer. We do provide the digital sales training and coaching. And we do help provide the consulting around content for sales. What is the right sales and how to distribute that content as well, using employee advocacy tools, of which we train on inside of our digital sales training and coaching program. What I want to show you is this, and this is the digital selling benchmark assessment, digitalsalesbenchmark.com, digitalsalesbenchmark.com. And you're seeing that link pop in right now, digitalsalesbenchmark.com. And that will take you to the right resource on Vengreso. What I encourage you to do is if you have a sales team that have at least 25 sellers or more, you're going to want to make sure that you get an assessment. And we'll do this assessment for you. And we basically take a survey. We survey your sales team. And with that survey, we ask very specific questions about what they're doing and how they're doing it. There's about anywhere between, depending on the organization and some of the needs, somewhere between 11 and about 15 questions. And what we do is we look at how do we engage your sellers to find out what they're doing right or wrong before we start a program to see if you really need a digital selling program. In most cases, 90% of the time, we have found that most organizations need some additional help, whether it's starting with profile development and rolling that out across your entire organization, or it is using social selling tools like LinkedIn or video programs from OneMob, Loom, Hippo Video. So digitalsalesbenchmark.com, I encourage you to get that particular assessment. You won't regret it. And the survey to your sellers literally takes less than 60 seconds to complete. In some cases, at most 90 seconds. So it's a very quick way to be able to survey the organization and see what problems you have to tee that up. There's also a couple other resources that I want to make mention as well that you should have. And that is when looking how to measure the ROI of your sales tools. The ROI of your sales tools. A lot of folks don't know how to measure that ROI. In fact, if you ask your sales operations leader, I pretty much promise you that most of your sales leaders are going to say, well, we don't have a way to measure the ROI. You're going to see a link that's forthcoming. And that link is the how to calculate the sales tool ROI. What we've provided there is a technique that allows sales leaders and enablement leaders to really look at which tools are driving the most amount of opportunities in the open pipeline and in the closed lost. And in some cases, if you're tracking booked meetings, is with the number of meetings that a seller's having. It's a very deep, rich article. And for those of you looking for it, just go to vengreso.com and just type in sales tools ROI. Sales tools ROI in the search, and you'll find it. It's one of our popular articles. But essentially, we show leaders what you can do to your CRM to be able to track sales tools that are being used in the beginning and in the end. And what's really insightful about this, super insightful, is that you'll quickly see a trend. Top performers are using X tools in opening and in closing sales opportunities. Middle performers and bottom dwellers, if you would, are not using certain tools. So it's very, very insightful. I encourage you to take a look at that particular one there. And then finally, one last resource that I want to give you is the written version of the 10 steps to launching a digital sales program. So that brings us to a close of the 10 steps to launching the digital sales training program. And now we're going to go into looking for some Q&A. And I'm going to stop that share right here so you can see my face. And let's take a look at what questions we might have coming in. All right, very good. So some of the questions are, how do I get my sales leader to buy in on the need for a digital sales training? Well, that's a good question. And the simple answer is you need to think about the business pain. So number one, does your sales leader believe that you have a problem, not you personally, but the sales organization has a problem with creating enough booked meetings? Now, this is not just a BDR function. This is a account executive problem. This is a global accounts manager problem or accounts director problem, is in booking more meetings. If that's a problem, then the first question has been answered for the pain. Do you have a problem booking more meetings? So yes, check that box. The next thing you want to find out is do we have a pipeline generation problem? Because there's a direct correlation between number of booked meetings and the amount of you have in your pipeline. If you don't have enough in your pipeline, it's because you're not having enough booked meetings. So therefore, if check and check, that's all you need to be able to say to a sales leader is say, we have these two problems and we have a solution. And it's going to be surrounding how to be able to drive more sales conversations for our sellers and build additional pipeline. So that hopefully will help you there in answering that question. Look, I'm excited to work with you guys. So I invite you to make sure you take advantage of the digital sales benchmark report tool that we've got. You'll love it. And the insights and the information that we present, you'll have a really, really, really good time with that. So I encourage you to go ahead and get that digital sales benchmark report and use it for your organization. Doesn't matter how large the organization is. We've run this for tens of thousands of folks. And finally, there's one last thing, and that is if you want to know more about prospecting, we just released, which will come out into our the announcements here in a second ago, on our blog, a brand new blog all about the definitive prospecting guide for sales management to grow pipeline. So that will come out very shortly here in the attachment section. And if you're watching this on demand, all you have to do is go to vengreso.com and type in prospecting guide. It is a beefy, very beefy article that is forthcoming. So I encourage you to look at that, and that should be dropped into the announcements any second right about now, which is the blog. With that in mind, hey, we're here helping to give insights on how to launch a digital selling program, how to be able to create more sales conversations, and how to book more pipeline. And don't forget, feel free to share this content out to all of your friends and family inside the organization.